Before humans built temples, they buried their dead. Before they wrote prayers, they dreamed of faces. Before they had gods, they felt watched. And before anyone had a word for ghost, the human mind had already discovered something strange. A person could be gone and still feel present. A voice could disappear and still echo inside the mind. A face could vanish from the firelight and still return in sleep. So maybe the first ghost was not a monster. Maybe it was not a white shape in the dark. Maybe it was not something outside the body at all. Maybe the first ghost was memory, refusing to disappear. When we ask whether prehistoric humans believed in spirits, we are really asking a much deeper question. When did the human mind first begin to feel that the visible world was not the whole world? When did darkness become more than darkness? When did a cave become a mouth? When did the wind become a voice? When did the dead become something more than absent? We cannot climb inside the mind of a person who lived 50,000 years ago. We cannot ask them what they believe. We cannot ask what they feared at night. Archaeology can find bones. It can find tools. It can find pigments, caves, stones, burials, and marks on walls. But archaeology cannot record a thought. It cannot preserve a dream. It cannot prove what someone felt when they looked into the dark and heard something move. So we have to speak carefully. We should not say prehistoric humans believed exactly what modern people believe. They did not have our word. They did not have our religion. They did not have our movies, our ghost stories, our churches, our cemeteries, or our sand. But they had something we still have. A nervous system, a memory, a fear of death, a need for meaning, and a mind that hated unanswered questions. Today, we treat ghosts like entertainment. We put them in films. We put them in games. We put them in haunted houses, podcasts, and campfire stories. We laugh at fear when the lights are. We tell ourselves we are modern. We tell ourselves we know better. But when the house is quiet, when the hallway is dark, when a floorboard creaks behind us, something ancient wakes up. For 1 second, the modern mind becomes old again. It stops thinking like a scientist. It starts thinking like a survivor. Was that just the wind? Was that just the house settling? Was that just my imagination? Or is something there? This question is older than civilization. It is older than writing. It is older than cities. It may be as old as the human brain itself. Because the brain was not built to be perfectly accurate. It was built to keep the body alive. And survival often rewards caution more than truth. If you hear a sound in the dark and assume it is nothing, you may be right most of the time. But if you are wrong once, the cost could be fatal. If you hear a sound in the dark and assume something is there, you may be wrong most of the time. But you survive. So the human brain learned a strange rule. Better to see a presence where there is none, than to miss a presence where there is one. This is one of the hidden roots of spiritual fear. The brain looks for agents. It looks for minds. It looks for intention. It asks who did this? Who moved that? Who is washing? Who is angry? Who is near? In the ancient world, this was useful. A sound in the grass could be wind, or it could be an animal. A shadow near the cave could be rock, or it could be someone waiting. A sudden illness could be bad food, or it could feel like an invisible force. A dream could be random images, or it could feel like a visit. To a modern person, this may sound primitive, but it is not stupid. It is pattern detection. And pattern detection is one of the reasons humans survive. The same mind that sees danger in the dark also sees meaning in the stars. The same mind that hears a threat in the bushes also hears a message in thunder. The same mind that remembers a dead face also imagines that face returning. This is where the story begins. Not with superstition, not with foolishness, but with intelligence under pressure. A mind surrounded by danger. A mind surrounded by death. A mind trying to understand a world that did not explain itself. Imagine a small group of early humans sitting near a fire. Outside the circle of light, everything is uncertain. The trees are dark. The cave is deep. The night is full of sounds. There is no electricity. No walls. No police. No hospital. No weather forecast. No explanation for thunder. No medicine for infection. No book that says what happens after death. There is only the group, the fire, the body, the memory, and the dark. In that world, fear is not entertainment. Fear is information. Fear says pay attention. Fear says do not walk too far. Fear says something may be near. Fear says remember what happened last time. But fear does not only protect the body. Fear also shapes meaning. When something frightening happens once, the mind remembers. When it happens twice, the mind connects. When it happens near a place, that place becomes special. When it happens after a dream, the dream becomes important. When it happens after someone dies, death becomes surrounded by sign. This is how a location becomes forbidden. This is how an object becomes sacred. This is how a sound becomes a warning. This is how a shadow becomes more than shadow. A modern person may say that is just imagination. But imagination was not always a luxury. Imagination allowed early humans to prepare for things that were not yet visible. It allowed them to picture danger before danger arrived. It allowed them to remember the past and predict them. It allowed them to ask, what if? What if the animal returns? What if the river rises? What if the cave is unsafe? What if the dead are not completely gone? The ability to imagine invisible things is not separate from intelligence. It is part of intelligence. The same mental power that creates tools can create spirits. The same power that imagines tomorrow can imagine an afterlife. The same power that remembers a person can imagine that person still washing. This is why the question of ghosts is not only about ghosts. It is about the birth of symbolic thought. At some point, humans stopped living only in the world of objects. They began living in a world of meanings. A stone could be more than a stone. A handprint could be more than a mark. A burial could be more than a place. A cave could be more than shelter. A dead person could be more than a body. This is one of the great turning points in human history. The world became layered. There was the visible layer: fire, stone, bone, water, skin, darkness. And then there was the invisible layer: memory, fear, hope, presence, absence, meaning. This invisible layer may be where spirituality begins. Not necessarily as organized religion, not yet as doctrine, not yet as temples or priests, but as a feeling, a suspicion, a deep intuition that the world contains more than what the eye can see. To understand this, we have to talk about death. Because death is the wound that forces meaning to appear. An animal can die and the group can move on. But when a human dies, something different happens. A human being is not just a body to other humans. A human is a voice, a role, a memory, a set of habits, a place by the fire, a way of laughing, a way of walking, a hand that once helped, a face that once looked back. When that person dies, the body may be gone. But the social person remains inside the minds of the living. You still expect them to be there. You still remember what they would say. You still feel the shape of them in the group. The body has stopped, but the relationship has not. This is the emotional root of ghosts. The dead do not disappear all at once. They disappear from the world before they disappear from the mind. And sometimes, they never fully disappear from the mind. A person dies, but their voice remains. Their face remains. Their warnings remain. Their kindness remains. Their anger remains. Their unfinished conversations remain. At night, these memories can feel like presence. In dreams, the dead can return with faces, voices. To the dreaming mind, they are not symbols. They are there. For early humans, dreams may have been one of the strongest bridges between the living and the dead. If you dream of someone who has died, what does that mean? Today, we may say it is memory. We may say it is grief. We may say the brain is processing loss. But without neuroscience, without psychology, without modern categories, the dream may feel like a visit. And if the dead can visit in dreams, perhaps they are not fully gone. This does not mean every prehistoric human believed in ghosts the way people do today. It means the human mind had all the ingredients needed to create ghost-like ideas. Dreams, shadows, memory, death, fear, pattern detection. social bonds, and the feeling of being watched. That feeling is important. Humans are deeply social animals. We survive by watching others and being watched by others. We learn what is allowed. We learn what is dangerous. We learn what brings praise. We learn what brings punishment. The human brain carries an inner audience. Even when no one is physically there, we can feel judged. We can feel ashamed. We can feel exposed. We can feel as if someone knows. This is not only modern anxiety. It is ancient social machinery. In a small prehistoric group, reputation could mean survival. Being trusted mattered. Being accepted mattered. Being rejected could be dangerous. So the mind became sensitive to eyes. It became sensitive to attention. It became sensitive to invisible judgment. This may help explain why spiritual fear often feels like being watched. Not merely being attacked. Watched. Seen. Known. A ghost is not always frightening because it can hurt the body. Sometimes it is frightening because it sees what should be hidden. It collapses privacy. It turns the dark into an audience. And this feeling connects ancient fear to modern life. Today, many people do not fear spirits in the old way. But they fear invisible judgment every day. They fear what others think. They fear failure. They fear shame. They fear being exposed. They fear disappointing people who are not even in the room. The ghost has changed shape. Now it may look like status. A crowd. A camera. A comment section. A family expectation. A memory of someone who criticized you years ago. But the feeling is old. The feeling is, I'm being watched. Something unseen has power over me. This is why the study of spiritual fear is also the study of human behavior. Because invisible forces still guide us. We may call them different names now. Pressure, guilt, anxiety, expectation, legacy, reputation. But emotionally, they can function like spirits. They live inside the mind. They shape choices. They punish us with fear. They reward us with relief. They tell us what we are allowed to do. In the ancient world, these invisible forces may have become stories. A certain place is not safe. A certain cave should not be entered. A certain object should not be touched. A certain name should not be spoken. A certain ritual must be done. Rules reduce fear. They give shape to uncertainty. They turn the unknown into something manageable. If you do this, you are safe. If you avoid that, you are protected. If you honor the dead remain peaceful. If you break the rule, something may happen. This is powerful, because rules can organize a group. They can protect people from real dangers. They can preserve memory. They can create respect for the dead. They can turn chaos into culture. But rules can also become cages. A fear that once protected the group can become a prison. A symbol that once comforted the mind can begin to control it. A ritual that once helped grief can become a source of anxiety. This is the human cost of invisible fear. When we do not understand the mind, we may obey every shadow it creates. We may mistake fear for truth. We may mistake memory for command. We may mistake uncertainty for warning. We may mistake guilt for a voice from beyond. And this is not only about prehistoric people. It is about us. Because modern humans still live with ancient brains. We can know a sound is probably nothing and still feel afraid. We can know a dream is only a dream and still wake up shaken. We can know a memory is inside us and still feel haunted by it. We can know no one is watching and still feel judged. The ancient mind did not vanish. It adapted. It learned new language. It moved into new rooms. It wears modern clothes now. But it is still there. In the dark hallway. In the silent bedroom. In the empty chair after someone dies. In the sudden memory that changes you. In the guilt that returns when everything is quiet. This is why ghosts have never fully disappeared from human culture. Even in a scientific age, the ghost remains emotionally. It gives a shape to feelings that are hard to name. Grief can become a ghost. Guilt can become a ghost. Trauma can become a ghost. Unfinished love can become a ghost. A ghost is often the mind saying, something is unresolved. Something has not been integrated. Something is absent but still active. And that may be why ghost stories continue to survive. They are not only stories about the dead. They are stories about the living, about what we cannot release, about what we cannot explain, about what follows us even after the event is over. The ancient ghost and the modern ghost are not the same, but both point toward the same human problem. We are creatures of memory, and memory does not obey time. Now think again about burial. A burial is not a small thing. To bury a body takes time. It takes effort. It means the group stops. It means the dead are treated differently from ordinary matter. The body is placed somewhere, sometimes with care, sometimes with objects, sometimes with color, sometimes in a position that suggests intention. We should be careful. We cannot always know what a burial meant. We cannot say every ancient burial proves belief in an afterlife. But we can say this: burial shows that the dead mattered to the living. It shows that death was not ignored. It shows that a body could become part of memory, symbol, and social meaning. That alone is profound. Because once the dead matter, the dead remains socially present. The group can return to the place. The group can remember. The group can tell stories. The group can pass down warning. The group can say, this is where someone rests. And from there, a deeper idea becomes possible. Maybe the dead are not only remembered. Maybe they remember us. Maybe they are not only kept by the living. Maybe they keep watch over the living. This may be one of the oldest bridges between grief and morality. If the dead can see, then behavior matters even in secret. If ancestors remember, then the group has a past. If the past washes, then the future becomes responsible. This is how spiritual ideas can strengthen social life. They can make people feel connected across generations. They can make the dead part of the moral world. They can turn memory into responsibility. They can say, you are not alone. You belong to those who came before you. But again, there is a double edge. The same belief that comforts can also frighten. The same ancestor who protects can also judge. The same presence that reduces loneliness can reduce freedom. If everything has a spirit, then nothing is truly private. If every place has memory, then every place has rules. If the dead remain near, then the living may never fully escape the past. This is why spirituality is not only beautiful. It is also heavy. It gives meaning. But meaning has weight. It gives comfort. But comfort can become control. It gives the world a voice. But sometimes that voice becomes too loud. This is the deeper truth. Spiritual fear may begin as a form of memory. The mind remembers danger. The mind remembers love. The mind remembers the dead. Then it projects memory outward. A cave becomes a mouth. A river becomes a voice. A tree becomes a witness. The sky becomes an eye. The world becomes social. And a social world feels less empty. But it also feels harder to escape. This is not childish. It is not simply primitive. It is the human mind doing what it has always done. Taking the unknown and giving it shape. Taking fear and giving it a face. Taking grief and giving it a place. Taking silence and giving it a voice. When lightning strikes, the mind asks why. When sickness comes, the mind asks why. When a child dies, the mind asks why. When a dream feels real, the mind asks why. When the dead still feel near, the mind asks why. And if the visible world does not answer, the mind reaches beyond the visible. Because the visible world is often not enough for human pain. Facts can describe what happened, but they do not always comfort the person who is suffering. A body stopped breathing. A storm destroyed the shelter. A disease took someone away. A person vanished from the circle of fire. These are facts, but the human heart asks a different question. Why this person? Why now? Where did they go? Do they still know us? Will we see them again? Can they forgive me? Can they hear me? These questions may be impossible to answer, but they are impossible not to ask. That is where spirituality may begin. Not in certainty, but in the pressure of unanswered pain. The mind cannot live forever inside a question. So it creates forms. It creates stories. It creates rituals. It creates invisible relationships. It creates a way to speak to what cannot speak back. And once a group shares that story, the invisible becomes socially real. If one person dreams of the dead, it may be private. If the whole group tells stories about the dead, it becomes culture. If the group repeats a gesture, it becomes ritual. If children learn the ritual, it becomes tradition. If tradition explains the world, it becomes worldview. This is how invisible things gain power. Not because everyone has proof, but because everyone behaves as if the meaning matters. A ghost remembered by one person is a feeling. A ghost remembered by a group becomes part of the. And once the dead enter the story, they do not fully leave. They remain in warnings. They remain in names. They remain in places. They remain in habits. They remain in what the living are afraid to do. They remain in what the living feel obligated to protect. That may be the oldest form of immortality. Not living forever in the body, but living inside those who remember. So did prehistoric humans know about spirituality? The honest answer is that we cannot know in one simple way. Some may have feared spirits. Some may have honored ancestors. Some may have believed dreams were visits. Some may have seen caves, animals, storms, and rivers as alive with presence. Some may have only followed traditions without explaining them. And some may have simply asked questions no one could answer. That may be the most human answer of all. Because spirituality does not begin only when someone invents a doctrine. It may begin much earlier. It may begin when a person looks at death and refuses to accept that love has nowhere to go. It may begin when a dream feels more real than waking life. It may begin when a sound in the dark feels intentional. It may begin when a burial turns absence into memory. It may begin when the world feels watched. It may begin when humans realize they are fragile. And when control ends, meaning begins. This is why the question of prehistoric ghosts matters. It is not only about ancient people. It is about us. We still live between knowledge and mystery. We still understand many things and fear many things. We still have sense and still feel haunted. We still know death is natural and still cannot make peace with it either. We still know memories are inside the brain and still feel as if the past can enter the room. We still know a dream is a dream and still wake up with tears. We still know a dark corner is probably empty and still look twice. This is not a failure of intelligence. It is evidence of what kind of creature we are. We are not machines that process facts. We are meaning-making animals. We do not only live in the world as it is. We live in the world as it feels. And the world often feels full of presence. The presence of people we lost. The presence of expectations. The presence of guilt. The presence of fear. The presence of love. The presence of what could happen. The presence of what already happened. A ghost is one name for that feeling. An ancient name. A symbolic name. A name for the way absence can still occupy space. Maybe prehistoric humans feared ghosts because they feared death. Maybe they feared ghosts because they dreamed of the dead. Maybe they feared ghosts because the dark was full of real danger. Maybe they feared ghosts because the human brain was designed to detect presence, even when presence was uncertain. But perhaps the deepest answer is this. They were becoming the kind of minds that could create ghosts, not because they were foolish, but because they were deeply human. They had memory strong enough to suffer. They had imagination strong enough to see beyond the visible. They had social bonds strong enough to make absence painful. They had fear strong enough to turn darkness into a question. They had love strong enough to keep the dead near. And from these things, the spirit world could emerge. Not all at once. Not as a finished religion. Not as a single belief. But slowly. Through dreams. Through burials. Through stories. Through places people avoided. Through names people whispered. Through fireside memories. Through the feeling that someone who had disappeared was still somehow close. This is what makes the first ghost so interesting. It may not have been a creature. It may not have been a monster. It may not have been something waiting outside the cave. It may have been the first moment a human looked at an empty space and felt that it was not empty. The first moment someone heard a dead person's voice inside memory. The first moment a dream made death feel less final. The first moment grief created presence. The first moment fear and love met in the dark. And that is why ghosts still stay with us. Because the conditions that created them have not disappeared. We still die. We still grieve. We still dream. We still feel watched. We still fear the unknown. We still look for signs. We still search for meaning when facts are not enough. The cave has changed. Now it may be a bedroom, a hospital room, a silent apartment, a phone that no longer receives messages, a chair no one sits in anymore, a street where someone used to walk. But the feeling is the same. Something is gone, and yet something remains. Maybe the ancient fear of ghosts was never only fear of the dead. Maybe it was fear of the mind itself. Fear of what memory can do. Fear of what love can preserve. Fear of what darkness can awaken. Fear of how strongly an absent person can still shape the living. And maybe that is also why ghost stories comfort us. They suggest that absence is not complete. They suggest that memory matters. They suggest that the dead are not simply erased. They turn loss into a relationship. They turn silence into a conversation. They turn the empty chair into a symbol. Of course, this does not prove ghosts exist. That is not the point. The point is that humans needed a language for experiences that felt bigger than ordinary life. The feeling of being watched. The pain of grief. The mystery of dreams. The terror of death. The strange power of memory. Spirituality may have been one of the first languages for those experiences. And maybe, in some form, we still speak that language. Even when we call it psychology. Even when we call it trauma. Even when we call it nostalgia. Even when we call it anxiety. Even when we call it love. The old words change, but the human experience remains. So when we ask, did prehistoric humans fear ghosts? We may also be asking, when did humans become aware that the world inside the mind could be as powerful as the world outside the body? When did memory become sacred? When did death become a question? When did darkness become a mirror? And when did humans first realize that the people we lose can continue shaping who we become? Maybe the ghost began there, not outside us, but inside the space between fear and love, inside the mind that remembers, inside the heart that cannot let go, inside the silence after someone is gone. And maybe that is why, after thousands and thousands of years, after science, after cities, after screens, after all our modern explanations, we still turn our heads when the room gets quiet. We still listen. We still wonder. And for one small moment, we still feel what they felt.